Hello, movie nerds, and welcome back to Cinematic Sarcastic, podcast that talks all things movies and television. I'm Natalie, and I'm your host. On today's episode, we're going to talk about the new action film Love Hurts. For anyone who is not familiar with this film, this one stars Huy Quan, and it basically is the story of an ex-hitman named Marvin Gable who finds himself back in that world. He has sort of taken a sabbatical into real estate. Someone who he left as he was supposed to kill this person but didn't. Her name is Rose. She comes back and finds him and basically pulls him back into that in order for them to defeat Knuckles Gable, his evil mobster brother, and win their freedom so that they essentially don't have to spend their lives hiding and pretending that they weren't kind of involved in this criminal enterprise. So I would love to give you guys a really full review of Love Hurts, but in full transparency, I really can't. I can only give you about the first 30 minutes of it because I hated this movie so much. I walked out of the theater and did not finish watching it. This is one of those action films that if you want absolutely zero whatsoever good plot, but you're okay with the 5 or 6 action scenes that will probably be presented to you in this film, Love Hurts is the movie for you. I do not mind mindless action. Pretty much anything that Jason Statham is cast in these days is what I would consider mindless action. I enjoy those. I enjoy a lot of the movies that The Rock is cast in. That's pretty much mindless action. It doesn't necessarily have the deepest story to that. I think that John Wick is one of those movies where there is a plot, but it mostly is just something that you don't necessarily have to follow all that well, and you are just there and watching it for the really cool action scenes. Unfortunately, I don't think Love Hurts is even as good as just a corny, mindless action film that we see these days. This one has the worst plot. It doesn't make sense in terms of what's actually going on in the film. The acting is really terrible, and I don't mean that in the actors that are cast in this are bad, because I think that Huy Quan obviously is a very good actor. Sean Astin is in this for a very minute bit. He isn't in the film for a very long amount of time, but he's in it basically for the portion that I was there. So he's not in the film past the 30-minute mark, essentially. But I think that Sean Astin is a good actor. There are other people in this film that I think are really good actors. The problem is that the script is just so over the top and cheesy and corny, and not in a fun sort of good way, but in a stupid, why am I watching this film kind of way? And I think that is why I just, after the 30-minute mark, was like, I don't want to waste my time watching this. I also kind of I don't even know what the word is really, but I was maybe a little bit angry that for the first time that we are seeing Huy Quan really in that leading role, that this was what they gave him. I didn't necessarily enjoy Everything Everywhere All at Once. I'm not really into that sort of artistic style of filmmaking. I think sort of the same way of Nosferatu, which just recently came out. I can recognize that a film is decent and still say that I didn't necessarily enjoy it, or it wasn't my personal cup of tea. And so I didn't enjoy Everything Everywhere All at Once. I think they really lost me during the majority of it, with the hot dog fingers and the portion where he's just a rock and it's subtitled. I have a hard time with stuff like that. It's not, I am a very basic biatch type of a moviegoer, right? And so I don't mind being able to say this wasn't my personal cup of tea, but I can recognize it for what it is. And Love Hurts, I don't even think does the genre of action film very well. There are a lot of other action films that are mindless action films that I think even put in the work for it, regardless of the fact that maybe they might not take themselves all that seriously, or they might know what it is. They might know that it's more of a B-list type of a film. This one, I wouldn't even consider that. Like, the action scenes themselves, I thought were decent, but I didn't think were great. They used some CGI, obviously, because I don't think that Huy Quan did all of the action for these. I think that there were certain parts of them, obviously, where you would have a stunt double present, and you can tell when that happens. Like, you can tell it's almost like it blips or something when it's the CGI version, or when it is the person that is the stunt double for that particular part of action, and then it blips back in when it's Huy Quan. And I didn't enjoy that. It just felt very much like a film that not only would have normally gone straight to DVD, but would have gone straight to DVD and maybe 4 people ever would have even known it. I think that's the style of film. And so it sort of frustrated me that you have an actor as good as Huy Quan, and then you don't utilize him in a way that I feel like was deserving. I think he deserved so much better than what this film offered him. It frustrates me maybe that he hasn't been given some better material to work with, or some better films. He won awards for his work in Everything Everywhere All at Once. And I guess this movie just sort of throws in your face that Hollywood very clearly is still not taking him seriously. And that was incredibly disappointing. But I feel like there isn't a single person in this film that was utilized for the talent that they so clearly have. Like, the dialogue was terrible. The storyline was terrible. And I say that only having witnessed the first 30 minutes. So I know I can't really say, maybe the movie improved over time, but I can't see how, for me at least personally, the movie would have turned itself around in another hour. I feel like I probably would have just been more irritated, a lot more bored, and I would have hated it worse if I had sat and actually wasted an hour and a half of my time instead of really walking out of it. And I will say, I do not typically walk out of films. I think the last movie that I walked out of was Solo, the Star Wars film. And I walked out of that one not because it was a particularly bad film, but because I am a prissy biatch. And I read all of the Solo books, the Han Solo books that came out. And so I sort of knew the backstory of Han Solo and where he had come from. And when the movie came out and it wasn't that, and they had changed so many things, I was just emotionally not having it. It's one of my favorite characters. I didn't like the way that Disney had done it, and I walked out of that movie because I didn't want to ruin for myself what I knew of that character and what I loved about that character. That is not the case with Love Hurts. There are no characters in this that I felt like could have won me over by the end of it. And I really enjoyed Huy Quan. I really wanted to go and see a film of his that was exceptional and that brought out the best of him. And unfortunately, this just is not the one. I am hoping that Hollywood will give him a better chance, that he will have some better scripts that come his way, and that this doesn't ding his career too much in terms of, because it doesn't seem like it is going to get very good reviews. Rotten Tomatoes, I think the critic score right now is 21%, and I think that that's very deserved for what this film gives you. It's got less than, I think, 50 reviews in terms of, just general audiences, so there isn't a percentage yet as of now, but I think it's really awful. And I would not waste your money on it. I think that this is one that even if it was streaming, I would probably have turned it off and looked for something else to watch or gone and done something else. I just don't think that this took the talent that they had and did something deserving with it. I think that this one is one that I struggle to even understand how they got funding for. I thought it was that bad in terms of how the movie was done. But again, those are just my thoughts. I would love to know what you guys thought of this one. If you have seen it, subscribe to join the Movie Nerd family, and I hope to see you in the next episode.